6-1. RTE News with Brian Dobson and Una O'Hagan.
Another day of carnage in Iraq. 2 bomb attacks kill at least 5 and injure many more.
House prices actually fell in Dublin in September, but overall they're expected to continue to rise.
This year we expect about 10 or 11% growth, and going forward we'd expect a more moderate level of growth of between 6 and 8%.
More than 1,000 publicans plan a national campaign to disrupt the ban on smoking in the workplace.
It is time that we stood up and be counted and told these people, take their meetings somewhere else, take their party and their fundraising somewhere else.
And in Ballymun, Gardaí search hundreds of empty apartments after reports that a newborn baby has been abandoned.
Today's suicide bomb attack in Fallujah, 30 miles west of Baghdad, happened just meters from the area's main police station. The explosion close to the town school is in a region where coalition troops regularly come under attack. The latest deaths come as aid agencies continue to agonise over what action they should take in light of yesterday's string of suicide bombs around Baghdad, which left at least 35 people dead and over 200 injured. Today, US President George W. Bush denied he had been premature in declaring major combat in Iraq over on May 1st.
It's a different kind of war than what we're used to. And Iraq is a front on the war on terror, and we will win this particular battle in the war on terror. And it's dangerous, and it's tough. And at the same time that we're confronting the danger, we're also helping rebuild a society.
One of those targeted in yesterday's suicide bombings, the International Committee of the Red Cross, says it will consider its position in Iraq over the coming days.
We cannot sacrifice more people in that case. I mean, we are very sad, very shocked, very angry. 12 people died yesterday, including 2 of our colleagues. And I don't think we can afford to have more casualties.
We've become used to property prices in Ireland escalating to ever more precarious heights. And in recent months, international think tanks from the IMF to The Economist have warned that the rate of house price increases here is unsustainable. The latest house price index compiled by the ESRI and Permanent TSB shows prices nationally at just under 14% per annum are slowing, with prices last month going up at just a third of the rate of September last year. But is this a welcome relief or a signal that prices may be beginning to slip?
More recently we've seen a number of reports coming out from people that have said there's a potential for negative equity. Certainly all the drivers and fundamentals of the market in Ireland remain very strong. So while we won't see huge growth in the 20% region, we do expect to see growth of between 6 and 8%, which is more sustainable in the long term for an economy like Ireland.
Prices in Dublin did marginally slip last month, but the average house price in the capital is still just under €300,000, almost a third above the rest of the country, and there prices are still going up.
I'm sure this is good news for people who are in the market out there, and we welcome that for those people. But clearly there's a very significant amount of people out there, and these statistics will mean nothing. It's still far, far away. It's a mountain to climb.
Today's house price index does contain some good news for those struggling to get on the property ladder. Property prices are slowing, with even a slight decrease recorded in Dublin. But with the price of a house nationally on average over €225,000, affordability for many is still a long way off. Robert Short, RTE News.
For Christ's sake, it is time that we stood up and be counted and told these people, take their meetings somewhere else, take their party and their fundraising somewhere else. Who runs this country? We do.
There's no doubting the fact that publicans are angry about the smoking of strength. The Vendors Federation must take a decision on whether or not to proceed with a legal challenge to the bill or embark on an alternative form of public protest. Ciara Malilly, RTE News, Portlaoise.
Desperate round-the-clock efforts continue to reach the 13 miners who are believed to be still alive. There has been no contact with the men since an underground lake spilled into the shaft and blocked their escape last Thursday. Rescuers are working from an adjacent mine, digging closer and closer. They're now within 10 feet of the men who are trapped more than 2,500 feet below ground. The rescuers have stopped the flow of water and dumped hundreds of tons of rock into the shaft to seal the leak. Experts say the trapped miners could survive for several days if they found a good air pocket. It's believed the men fled to a dry area and are still alive. 33 other miners have been rescued and reunited with their families. Apart from shock and exhaustion, they are in good health. Senior mine officials are hoping to get more reliable information from these men as to the likely location of their trapped colleagues. Meanwhile, the local community gathers together in prayer and support as they await what they hope will be good news on the 13 missing miners. Teresa Mannion, RTE News.
Netherlands is renowned for its tolerance on many social issues, but the authorities are working hard to remove the dangers of tobacco smoke. 32% of Dutch people smoke. Now the government is following up an advertising ban with a complete ban on smoking on trains, and from January 1st, every employee will have the right to a smoke-free workplace. But crucially, the Minister for Health has, under pressure from the Dutch hospitality lobby, temporarily stepped back from banning cigarettes from bars, hotels and restaurants. Instead, he's given the sector until Christmas to come up with an alternative plan.
I believe in subsidiarity. That means that talk with each other and see that how can we reach the same target, the same goal, to abandon smoke in this place where public smokers and non-smokers go in together.
The hospitality sector, which says 50,000 jobs will be lost if there's a complete ban, may call for restrictions to be graded. In other words, those places where children congregate or where food is served, like fast food outlets, sports clubs and restaurants, would have the tightest restrictions, while bars and cafes the fewest. But in pubs like this one, there's little appetite for having a separate smoking section, and a total ban is rejected out of hand.
I'm here, I'm a barkeeper. I'm not a police officer, and I don't think it's my duty to, when this whole place is full, run around and say, hey, come on, it's not allowed to smoke, go out, it's not allowed to smoke.
And I believe that smoking and drinking in a bar, typically in a bar, goes together.
It's horrible, it's terrible. So why inhale it all when you are drinking and enjoying yourself? So, yeah, let's separate it and go outside. Sorry.
Even though the anti-smoking lobby say they would accept a walled-off smoking room as opposed to an open smoking section, they do expect the government to give as much protection to non-smokers and staff as possible.
Tobacco smoke is hazardous. It's not a nuisance, it's hazardous. It's full of carcinogens and toxic substances, and it's almost intolerable that people in any working situation would be in a situation where they would have to work with these substances in the air.
Ireland's European Commissioner David Byrne has already suggested a ban on smoking in the workplace across the European Union. That may be some way off just yet, but policymakers will be watching closely to see how successfully Ireland and the Netherlands will be able to implement their anti-smoking legislation. Crucially, the Dutch Minister for Health is on record as saying a total smoking ban would be difficult to implement. People here are waiting anxiously for his final deliberation. Tony Connolly, RTE.
This was the moment outside Conservative Central Office today when Ian Duncan-Smith said formally he wasn't going to go quietly, and that, as Mrs. Thatcher once famously said in similar circumstances, he was fighting to win. It didn't do Mrs. Thatcher much good, and there are many at Westminster today who believe that it won't do IDS much good either.
I will absolutely submit my name for a renewed mandate to lead the party to the general election, to lead it to the general election, and to win. And I say to my colleagues, who will be responsible for making this decision tomorrow, that we have an unrivaled opportunity to take the fight to Labour at a time when they are failing and they are being seen to fail. And we should not now let the government off the hook
But letting the government off the hook is exactly what many in his party say he's done. They say he hasn't taken the fight to Labour on issues like schools, crime, hospitals and transport, and that it's time for him to go before the party loses even more seats in the next election. Tory MPs will hold their secret confidence ballot in a room in a Westminster corridor tomorrow afternoon. The result will be known by 7 o'clock. If Mr Duncan Smith loses, it'll trigger a full leadership contest from which he'll be excluded. The likely contenders could include Shadow Chancellor Michael Howard and Deputy Party Leader Michael Ancram, who lined up in support of their leader today. Former Party Chairman David Davis and Shadow Home Secretary Oliver Letwin are also expected to throw their hats into the ring. If Ian Duncan Smith wins here tomorrow, he can't be challenged for another year. If he loses, a full leadership contest could take weeks, if not months. And his supporters here tonight are saying that's precious time, which would be better spent attacking Tony Blair. Brian O'Connell, RTE News, Westminster.
Controversial and costly stretch of new road in the country, but the new dual carriageway at the Glen of the Downs in Wicklow is still making news. After over 3 years of construction and traffic delays, the multi-million-euro roadway only opened last week, but still has a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. On either side of the upgraded stretch, the limit on the N11 is 60 miles an hour. Motorists and motoring organisations say it's daft, but there is an explanation. The National Roads Authority says it's a temporary measure imposed for safety reasons because ancillary work continues at the site.
Certainly within the next few months, that will revert back to 60 miles per hour, which is as it should be, because it is ridiculous for a modern dual carriageway to have a 40-mile-an-hour limit, and lots of people are making that complaint to us.
The N11 from Dublin to Wexford is one of the busiest road routes in the country, but motorists using it still face more delays and disruption. Major upgrades are taking place in South Wicklow, and the last section of the M50 motorway is still under construction between Ballinteer and Shankill, causing traffic trouble where its new junctions link to the N11. Traffic delays may be a fact of life on the N11 for a few more years, but the AA says the southeastern motorway is worth waiting for.
If you ask anybody in Dundrum or Sandyford or Dunleary or Cabinteely what traffic is like, it is a disaster. The M50 is desperately needed, and when it comes along, coupled with the N11 improvements, it will completely free up that section of the city.
So while the major works at the Glen of the Downs may have finished, users of the N11 will still face traffic delays. Because of the construction of the M50 and exit junctions like this one at Loughlinstown, delays will be experienced on the N11 for a number of years to come. Gareth O'Connor, RTE News at Loughlinstown in Dublin.
Just 4 of our cities, Dublin, Cork, Galway and Limerick, have full-time fire brigades to deal with massive blazes like this one which occurred in Cork last month. Elsewhere in the country, 1,900 retained or part-time firemen and women man the tenders which fight fires like this one, which damaged the old Carmelite College in Moat in County Westmeath last night. 3 years ago, Moat lost its fire brigade because it couldn't get volunteer firefighters. Today's conference was told that many employers no longer want their staff to become part-time firemen.
Under the way things are set up now, I mean, if you wanted to join the retained fire service from your full-time employment, you'd have to get your boss to sign to say that he would release you for firefighting duties. And with the way business constraints are now, employers are not prepared to do that.
Today's conference called for the immediate implementation of the government-commissioned Farrell Grant Sparks report, which recommends sweeping changes to our firefighting and emergency services.
There has been huge growth in the country over the last 10 years, both population-wise, domestic housing and indeed industrial development, but yet the fire cover standards themselves haven't been looked at all by government or by the local authorities, and there needs to be a huge growth in the cover provided nationally on a full-time basis.
We are now calling on the Minister.
The death of jockey Ciarán Kelly earlier this year shocked Irish racing. News last weekend of serious injuries to 2 more young riders, Helen Keohane and Sean Cleary, has once again highlighted the dangers involved in the sport. Female apprentice Keohane, who fell when leaving the parade ring at Leopardstown yesterday, is in a stable condition in hospital and thankfully appears to be on the mend. Alas, the news of 22-year-old Cleary is not as good. The Athlone apprentice, seen here winning aboard Hector O'Huckagon's Traverse at Ballinrobe in August, suffered severe head injuries after a fall from Paddy Mullen's All Heart in the 7 furlong Corrib Oil auction race at Galway on Sunday.
I'm really not at liberty to give any full details, but all I can say that he's critically ill. He's in the intensive care of the National Neurosurgical Unit in Beaumont Hospital, and we have just to wait day by day, but that is the situation.
Though the dangers appear obvious, the numbers of serious injuries are thankfully low. Ciarán Kelly's death was the first fatality in this country since 1986. National hunt jockeys will have a fall on average every 10 to 12 races, with their counterparts on the flat falling only once in every 250 to 300 starts. However, they're almost 5 times more likely to suffer injury, statistics that keep the sports officials eternally vigilant.
I would say it is as safe as it can be, but when I've said that, there is never any stage one can be completely happy with safety in racing. The same as safety in any other industry. And one has to keep watching and improving and doing what is necessary to improve racing.
The coming days will reveal more on the condition of Sean Cleary. For now, all racing can do is wait and hope.
I have to say, you know, it is very worrying. We're all very shocked. There's an air of gloom in racing. I was racing yesterday in Leopardstown, and to just walk into the riders' changing room, one could feel it. And I said to Michael Kinane, well done on High Chaparral. And the first thing he said to me, how is Sean Cleary?
Joe Stack, RTE News.